Hello and welcome to Old People This Week. I'm Jeff, and that guy there, who used to be called Slim in 1880s Montana and today just called Sir, that's
Hey,
Mike. Good
you.
morning, Mike.
Morning, Jeff. Hello, everyone.
We are your hosts. Old People This Week is a podcast for sprightly and mentally agile people 60 years of age and up. So if you've managed to stumble in here somehow and you're not yet 60, you can either exit and go back to Reddit and TikTok, or you can stay here and learn something. Um,
And be highly
we,
entertained.
that's right, highly. We
Highly.
bring you the stories that you need to know so that you'll sound smart this weekend, which begins tomorrow, as this is Thursday, as you hang out with your friends playing golf, or you're on the pickleball court, or you're at the gym, or of course, lounging in a bar at happy hour, which is where you'll
Raising a
find Mike and I.
martini. Shaken, not stirred. No fruit.
Shaken, not stirred. Please subscribe. If you subscribe, Mike will come over to your house and give you a gentle back rub. That he's a specialty. It's a speciality. Please, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically anywhere that you listen to folks like us. Please email us. We at oldpeoplethisweek@gmail.com. We take all questions, comments. We'll tell you anything you need to know. Between us, we have over 150 years of life experience. Of course, 100 of that is Mike's, not mine. But it allows us, or gives us the good fortune to be able to answer any and all questions. Check out our Substack at 52tasks.substack.com. Last week we talked about attending a different religious service. This week we're going to teach you how to compliment someone. We had a compliment from a viewer, by the way, Mike. His name is Ken Landon,
Yeah.
and he said, "Thank you, gentlemen." That's all he said about last week's podcast. Thank you, gentlemen.
Wonderful.
Yep,
We appreciate that.
very nice of him. So it's the 4th of July today, as you see this. And Mike, what are you doing tonight for the 4th?
I'm going to stay in my house so sparks don't fall on me and burn me up.
Yeah.
Or
Well, if you had a dog like us, you have to stay home because dogs go crazy when they hear, when there's a lot of fireworks. I've had a dog try to jump out a window. They get disoriented, they get afraid, and they go crazy.
Yeah.
So we're going to stay home and take care of our dog, whose name is Truman. As we were getting ready to begin the podcast today, the doorbell rang. I walked outside, perturbed because I was being interrupted, and two women are sitting out there on the other side of the fence, and they said, "Do you believe in Jesus?" And I said, "Well, not really. At the moment, I'm torn. I have to get back inside." And she said, "Well, okay, I'm sorry." And she handed me this card, jw.org, which is a clever new branding for Jehovah Witnesses.
Yeah.
Though I
You
didn't.
you forgot our central lesson.
Yeah.
Don't answer the phone and don't answer the doorbell.
Matter of fact, don't interact with other humans.
Stay in your cocoon.
Yeah. You have a story today about a scam that's really a nasty story, and it just shows you how you can't be too careful. Don't trust anybody.
No way.
I make my wife show me her ID every night before she comes in the bedroom.
Yeah, who are you?
Yeah, who are you? And prove it. All right. Mike and I this week, actually last week, had appeared on a TV show called Desert Chat, hosted by Sandy Newton.
Yeah.
And Sandy Newton, who is a local TV star out here in the desert, she was kind enough to let us come on to her show and talk about the podcast, which was great. And
Yeah,
it appeared, It continued to be great until I watched me on camera. On Sunday night, we went to our local watering hole and watched the replay, or the debut of the segment, and I looked horrible. I felt stupid.
Why did you wear all black? I couldn't figure that out.
You'd think I would know about how to appear on television after I literally produced about 5,000 on-camera interviews over the years, but I didn't. It was just for me, it was a disaster. But we did get the point across of who we were, what we're doing, and
Yeah.
hopefully I sent it to my kids. They're still laughing. Speaking of dumb things I saw on TV this week, besides myself, and we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I watched a good-natured but sort of a bonehead comedy called Mother of the Brides with Brooke Shields and
Horrible.
the iCarly girl. And
Horrible.
horrible. Not horrible, but just like by the numbers TV movie, and it's hard to sit through
Total
after.
waste of time. Just a total waste of time.
Well, then this weekend, even though I should never turn on these things, these Netflix rom-coms again, I watched one called A Family Affair with Nicole Kidman and Zac Efron.
Any good?
No. It's the same as the mother. It's the same as the Mother of the Bride, and the same.
Fill in
And
the
it was
blank.
just like another one called The Idea of You, in which Anne Hathaway falls for a young rock star, right?
Yeah, we watched that. It was fun because I love Anne Hathaway.
All right.
Yeah,
But, I
she
mean,
could
it's
read
kind
her she could read her driver's license to me, and I'd be on the edge of my chair.
Well, this was the same idea, only it was Nicole Kidman playing a writer, of course, who falls for a 30-year-old movie star played by Zac Efron. So it was the same young man, older woman. Should they stay together? Nicole Kidman's daughter, who works for Zac Efron's character, and who is just appalled when she walks in and finds them knocking boots in the house one day.
Oops.
Speaking of romance, but sort of more R-rated romance, you could not be online in the past week and not be confronted with the Hawk Tuah girl.
That's frightening. It is so frightening.
And I know everybody's seen this video, but for Mike and I, we will tell anybody of our age group who has not yet seen this incredible thing. There's a young woman. She's out in Nashville one evening, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, after whatever night the CMA Fest was. And she's out in the streets with her girlfriend late at night. And this guy comes up to her with a microphone. And he's a YouTuber, part of a team called Tim and D TV. And they go out and do interviews with people and their random questions and sort of it's a comedy thing.
Yeah.
And the guy comes up to her and her friend, and he asks her, the star of this, whose name is Haley Welsh. She says to her, "Can you name a sex move that makes a man go crazy?" And she responds with an impromptu, immortal words, "You've got to give him that Hawk Tuah and spit on that thing." And the way she says it, and the spontaneity of it, and almost the joy she had in telling us that, was an instant viral moment. She later said that she had no qualms about participating in the interview, quipping, "I could talk to a brick wall if you let me."
Yeah. Now there's a troubling sign right there.
And that brought up a bunch of almost instantaneously rumors about her that she was a kindergarten teacher and that she'd subsequently been fired. Well, she's not a
False.
kindergarten teacher. She works in a factory that makes springs and in a small Tennessee town, and she works the 2 a.m. till 10 a.m. shift. I mean, see, that's how.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And the other viral rumor was that her dad was a preacher, and her dad's no preacher. I saw him, dudes. And now she's gotten so famous that they're selling her hats, Hawk Tuah 24 on it.
Oh, my God.
They're selling all kinds of T-shirts, all kinds of merchandise. She's signed with a talent agency. and she went on stage with Zach Bryant over this past weekend. There was nobody of our generation doing any Hawk Tuahing.
I'm out of here.
Yeah. Maybe they did in the 70s and I missed it.
Yeah, might have been a thing when you were high, and it went right by you.
Right over my head, so to speak. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about in the media this week.
Oh, good.
We'll start off with, besides the Hawk Tuah girl, Alec Baldwin, again, in the news. What happened, Mike? Tell us.
First of all, the case against him is going to proceed. His appeal on the grounds that the gun had been tampered with in testing by the FBI. You know, a group of people who have no idea how to handle firearms, in his mind. So they debunked the gun fired by itself theory. So he's going to trial.
Well, he's charged with involuntary manslaughter, and when the prosecution sent the gun out months and months ago to the FBI for testing,
Yeah.
and it came back, and evidently it was in pretty bad shape. So his attorneys said that the government's outrageous, and that's in quotes, destruction of the firearm violated Baldwin's rights and deprived Baldwin's attorneys of the chance to examine the gun in its original state and bring a proper defense. Of course, the judge didn't buy it.
No.
He's trying any legal move possible to stay out of that courtroom. And then over this past weekend, he and his wife, Hilaria, which is, what a crazy name, Hilaria.
Boy, you'd have to be Hilaria to be married to him.
Well, they celebrated their 12th wedding anniversary, which is great. Congratulations.
Yeah, he finally made one last.
7 kids. Do the math. 7 kids in 12 years.
That woman's never had any time off.
No, she's been pregnant the entire marriage.
Must have been a lot of Hawk Tuah going on there.
There's a lot of everything going on there.
Oh, my God.
Now he might go to jail. That's not good for the marriage, for those 7 kids.
Well, get him out of circulation. He won't be making any more bad movies.
Yeah. All right. And speaking of bad movies, you were bragging and so excited to go see the Kevin Costner Horizon thing. Did you go?
Don't go there. Don't criticize that movie. It was
3 hours?
It was great. I had
Oh,
no
my
sense. No, I had no sense at all that it was 3 hours long. And usually my bladder gives me a signal about every hour and a half that I need to do something other than be watching a movie. Sat there for 3 hours, had no idea that it was it was that long at all. It was terrific. And the theater, by the way, was packed. There wasn't an empty seat in the theater. So, I don't know, I think the preliminary assessment, maybe by the numbers, is that it was a dud. But I don't think so. I think the word of mouth is going to get around.
Oh, please. He spent $100 million on this thing, and this is the first 3 hours of what's going to be 12 hours of this crazy thing. It only made $11 million. He spent over $38 million of his own money, plus the reviews. It's not just me, because I'm not going to go see that dopey thing, but it said that, how did they say that? They said, he doesn't even come in for the first hour.
No, it was.
And then, well past the 2-hour mark, entirely new locations, characters, and plot lines, most of which could probably support their own normal-length feature film, continue to appear as if Costner has set out to chronicle the life of every single individual settler who ventured west in the mid-1800s. So you didn't find this thing to be drawn out and boring?
Not at all. Not at all. But remember, I grew up in that part of the country. So I could relate to not only the visuals, but what it must have taken for people to get to the West, to get to Montana to Wyoming and survive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I thought it was terrific.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're going to sit through 12 hours of this, I'm going to buy you some adult diapers so you don't have to go to the bathroom and miss one frame of this saga.
I want a gallon of gin. That's all I need.
That's what you snuck in there anyways, probably, in a
A
plain.
backpack. Fill a water bottle up with white wine or gin, and you're in great shape. They never check.
Well, if they did check, they'd get knocked out by sniffing that gin you drink. Oh my God. Speaking of movies that you liked, because you're on the cutting edge of going to see motion pictures, you
That's
like
just
Bad
because
Boys.
you
Huh?
just don't like going to theaters. You're so antisocial.
You liked Bad Boys Ride or Die
It was fun. It was a fun flick.
with with Will Smith, the slapper.
Yeah. Now he's a jerk.
He performed at the BET Awards the other night. I watched a little clip of that. And, for being, I don't know how old he is, 50 some years old, he was out there rapping and dancing and it looked great. Well, at least Mr. Costner, Will Smith, and Alec Baldwin are still alive. We can't say as much for Matthew Perry.
Yeah. That's a sad story. All the way around. But it sounds like somebody might be getting charged with contributing to his death.
Yeah, an investigation into Matthew Perry's devastating death is almost complete roughly 8 months after he lost his life at age 54 from, quote, acute effects of ketamine in October 2023. And it's a dissociative anesthetic used medically for induction and maintenance of anesthesia. It is also used as a treatment for depression and pain management. I should use it if I have to go to the motion picture theater.
You should.
Sit through Kevin Costner's 3 hours of, well, actually, he's only in there for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Sit there, him riding around on a horse.
Yeah. He didn't
With all
want to pay
kind of-
himself that extra hour of overtime.
How could he not be in the movie for the first hour?
I mean, it made sense, but it only made sense once he appeared. So, yeah, I'm sure people got a little impatient wondering where the hell he was, particularly because they're used to watching Yellowstone, where he's in every scene, killing people, throwing them over cliffs, running over with them, livestock, whatever.
Well, this is whatever. As far as Matthew Perry goes, people close to the actor told the coroner's investigators that he was undergoing ketamine infusion therapy. Perry was kind of mixed up guy anyways. He had struggled with addictions for his whole adult life.
Yeah.
I remember, you remember that you had introduced me to those guys who work on audio video systems?
Yeah. Yeah, they're the guys who put the system in our house, and then we introduced them to you. But they did, according to them anyway, they worked on most of his property. And,
Yeah.
and I guess he had a reputation for buying and flipping properties and developing properties. But that one TV complex they talked about putting to his house where the TV rose up out of the floor at the foot of the bed or something, and sounded very exotic.
Yeah, well, that was somewhere where he lived. I remember they told us, or they told me and my wife that Perry was a smoker, and he used to have his assistant around because he had a propensity to fall asleep with a lit cigarette in his hand.
Yeah.
And they were always worried about him burning himself up. So I think he was screwed up for a while. And I did believe those guys. I mean, the stories were astonishingly weird enough, and that they didn't seem like they were making it up at all. So at any rate, they're nearing the conclusion of their investigation, and the police believe that multiple people should be charged in connection to his untimely passing.
Yeah.
Which means that he was being enabled by a lot of people, dealers and whatnot, and that's how he got this stuff, and that's too bad.
It's the old Michael Jackson saga all over again.
Yeah, another untimely death.
Yeah.
Speaking of untimely deaths, but this was not a death in the sense of dying, but a sort of dying on camera of shame, was this Jeopardy jinx. During last Monday night's episode, the returning champ is this guy named Drew Basile, a graduate student from Birmingham, Michigan.
Yeah.
And he's facing off against, in this game, against Erin Bucher, who was a stay-at-home mom from San Pedro, California, and a guy named Graham Hicks, who was a lighting director from Ottawa, Canada. So Drew enters this match. He'd already been on for 3 days. He'd won a total of $53,000, and he won that day as well. He crushed both Aaron and Graham. But the story after the end of the show was not about Drew. The story was about poor Aaron.
Aaron.
She, when it got to the final Jeopardy part of the show, she had a negative score of minus $7,200, which is the second lowest score in the history of the long-running game show. The lowest was by this guy Patrick Pierce, who managed to be $7,400 in the hole at the end of his game on July 26, 2021. So I feel bad for Erin, the stay-at-home mom, all psyched up, going to go be on Jeopardy, and then gets publicly humiliated by, literally did not get an answer right, and kept pressing the button and answering. And they talked to her later on, and she was, I have to give her credit, she was pretty self-deprecating about it and didn't whine about it. She just said that she was so nervous, and as she put it, her thumb seemed to have a mind of its own and kept pressing the button.
Yeah.
She just kept getting the answers wrong. So I will give Erin some slack, though, because I have, as I said earlier, as I was recounting at the beginning of this podcast, how nervous I was just to be on that silly desert chat and only answering 3 questions, and which I didn't really have to even know the answer. I just babbled out anything. But here you're supposed to be getting onto a television show in which your knowledge is on full display or lack thereof. And she just got nervous. And so I'm not going to get down on her.
Yeah, no, because they do a screening. I mean, they screen those people before they come on. They pass some preliminary, exams or something.
Yeah.
So she clearly earned her spot. But it's kind of feel bad for her.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah. She had to suffer, and they don't make you pay the $7,200, do they? When you're negative 7,200.
No.
Like you can't leave here until you write a check for $7,200.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
That would keep the boneheads off the show.
That would narrow the field considerably.
Yeah. All right. Well, this next story is just plain and simple sad. But since you and I talk about scams all the time, and especially we instruct our brethren of our age to how not to get scammed.
Never answer the phone. Don't go.
Never answer the phone.
Don't answer the doorbell.
Don't do anything. Just ignore all attempts to get in touch with you or talk to you about anything, unless unless it's as I've said before, unless it's your wife, your kids, or your best friend. Even then, be wary. You don't need to talk to anybody. You're certainly not get involved in any schemes. So this 82-year-old Virginia man, he committed suicide after falling victim to what's called a pig butchering crypto scam. And his family are heartbroken that he seemed to trust the scammer more than his own children. So first question is,
Terrible.
Do you know what a pig butchering scam is, Mike? And by the way, it does not involve any live hogs. It's a long-term investment fraud that involves scammers gaining the trust of victims online and convincing them to invest in a fraudulent cryptocurrency scheme. The term pig butchering comes from the scammers' practice of fattening up their victims over time before slaughtering them and stealing their money. basically, when I read into this, if, say, I was the scammer and you were the scammy, I would work you for months just to become close to you and
Yeah.
then slowly introduce the idea of, hey, I got this great investment. And then you would say, oh, Jeff, sure. How much do you need? And then I would say, just $100, and then start off low and then more, and you need more. You're making money. And then pretty soon, this guy, 82-year-old guy from Virginia, his name was Dennis Jones. Pretty soon, he found himself dead broke. So, yeah, the woman, she called herself Jessie on Facebook, and she reached out to him, and that's how this relationship started. And Jessie worked Dennis for a long time, months and months,
Yeah.
but they and all these messages that they exchanged came to light after his death. But during that time, his daughter had noticed that Dennis was acting odd and started confronting him about it. And then he talked about this relationship he was having, but he began to pull away from the family when they started saying, "Don't, stop interacting with this Jesse."
Yeah.
And they finally set up an intervention so the family could get together with Dad and say, "Dennis, don't, you have to quit this. You can't do this anymore."
Not at
Before the
all.
meeting could take place, they were informed that he had taken his own life. Following the death, the family found the heartbreaking messages that he had exchanged with the scammer Jesse. And during the exchanges he had with Jesse, he was telling Jesse that he was depressed and having thoughts about his life being over. And Jesse just was cold blooded and just wanted more money.
Well, Jesse was probably some guy in Nigeria running
Yeah,
a scam. I mean, it's horrible.
yeah. Yeah, scammers use fake online personas and impressive yet fraudulent investment portfolios to convince victims of the legitimacy of their schemes. They promise high investment returns within a short period or tell victims about big wins they have enjoyed recently. Once the victims are hooked and have invested a significant amount of money, the scammers suddenly disappear.
Yeah.
This pig butchering scam originated in China around 2019, has moved to the United States. And once more, the people that are getting scammed are
Seniors.
people of our age group, which
Yeah.
is sad and stupid.
Yeah.
To all of you out there, I'm going to look directly in the camera. I'm going to speak directly to you if you're 60 or over, and you get a phone call from someone who you don't recognize the name on your phone, or if you get an email from somebody or a business that you shouldn't be getting an email from or you're not used to getting an email from, ignore it all. Right,
Oh,
Mike?
don't answer the phone. Don't answer anything on the computer that you don't recognize. Don't answer your doorbell unless you know someone's coming over who's already prearranged a visit with you. Just stay the hell away from all this stuff.
Yeah, you just got to stay away from it. You really do. Just don't interact with anybody you don't know very, very well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to end up a lot poorer and a lot sadder. I have two stories from Florida, of course. I'll get through them quickly because we love to end our
We
podcast
love
with stories from
Florida.
Florida. A woman named Sarah Boone, 46, was accused of suffocating her boyfriend, Jorge Torres Jr., 42, in a suitcase after what Boone described as a game of hide and seek gone wrong.
Jorge, climb into this suitcase here.
Jorge, where are you hiding? I can't find you, Jorge.
I can't see you.
I'm in the suitcase.
Jorge
So
must have been very small, or that must have been one very big suit.
she strangled him and shoved him in there too. That's what the worst thing. And now she's been in custody for about a year and a half, and she's gone through 7 attorneys, and she's on her 8th attorney, and that was what prompted this story.
Oh, good.
And our last story is, of course, it's always Florida based. Well, this one's a New Jersey man who flew to Florida, but it's always these things happen in Florida. And this is another cautionary tale for people who are in
Computer.
that generation that do nothing but play video games.
Yeah.
So these two were playing Arca Age, and they got pissed off at each other somehow playing this game. One of them lives in Florida. The other guy lives in New Jersey. The New Jersey guy, whose picture is here, flew down to Florida, went to a hardware store, bought himself a hammer, drove over to Ferdinanda Beach, where this other guy lived, snuck into the house, snuck into the guy's bedroom, sleeping, and he hits him over the head with a hammer, and which, of course, enrages the guy in bed, and then he starts hollering, and his stepfather comes in, and they grab the attacker and manage to hold him till the cops come. And even the cops said, "I just want to let you know that this is a weird one. Some things make you say, some things you just can't make up. And there are some things that make you say, what the world was he thinking?" So
This one was all of those.
this is why I'm glad I'm not of the generation of those games too, where people can get pissed off at you just from what you do when you're playing a video game.
Yeah, they never met you or seen you.
I will say this though, my youngest son, when he was in his teens, would play a ton of video games, specifically one called FIFA. It's a soccer thing, and during that, he could have headphones on, and if he was playing with a team, you could talk back and forth, so on.
Yeah.
And they would rip each other mercifully. They don't know each other, and you're using an online username, so you don't really know who the person is, so they would say anything and everything. And I think what this happened is this guy got infuriated up in New Jersey, and somehow figured out who the guy was who was goofing on him, and he flew to Florida to take care of it. I think I'm going to say goodbye now. Please subscribe, and if you subscribe, Mike will fly to your house and cook you a Denver omelet. You can follow us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Please email us at oldpeoplethisweek@gmail.com. Check out our Substack at 52tasks.substack.com. And in the short order, I wanted to announce one last thing. By September, Mike and I are going to be in a new studio, which will be very exciting. And we'll be interacting with each other right next to each other, which will be amazing. Like we're not doing right now because Mike's computer died. But thank you all. See you next week. Talk to you later. Goodbye.